Welcome to the 145 Rural Podcast, where we are here to strengthen music careers and communities one song at a time. And now, here's your host, Jacob Wing. Yay!
All right, and welcome to the second episode of the 145 Rural Podcast. Extremely happy to have you here. Today's episode is a really big one and one I'm very passionate about, and it really speaks to the fundamentals and having that foundation moving forward. And it is balance is the key. So let's just get started, get deep into it. What do we mean when we're talking about balance is the key? Mostly, as we get going, we're going to start talking about how it's really hard to do anything, to focus on anything, to grow without having a strong foundation and something to grow upon. So, we're talking about why balance is important. It becomes really clear really fast if something is out of balance. It's not so much beforehand. It's easy to assess that something's out of balance. It's just that it's always the after fact, and we want to avoid that. We want to give everybody the best chance to succeed and grow and move forward. So the first thing to talk about is really balance in your home life. So we're not talking about being a therapist or assessing you and your life and the dramas and the pitfalls and everything like that. We're just talking about, it's really hard to start talking about having a career or to grow or to become better or to achieve goals if you're always putting out fires in one direction or the other. So if your home life's out of balance and you just can't seem to be getting anywhere, that's a big reason why you wouldn't be able to grow and why everything doesn't work and why it's so fundamental for that to work. So so if the more that you seem to have your affairs in order, the more that you seem to be able to strike that balance in your life, the farther you're able to go, the longer you're able to put into projects, into, practice or growing or some, things like that. So it's really important to have a good foundation and a good place in life so that you can invest the time into what matters to you. If we're really talking about other things like that, other things that can be out of balance, like your home life or things like that, health is one of those ones for sure that can be out of balance, and it's really fast to learn what's not working there. Your body will naturally tell you if something's out of whack or something's not working. It's really obvious when something's broken there when it comes to health, and it's never good. So, but it's something that we've all dealt with where your body tells you that I've gone too far this way or I'm not getting enough of this. It's pretty fast to tell you something's out of balance. Another example that we like to use is, of course, loved ones, partners, wives, husbands, anything, someone else, that significant other. If that's out of balance, it really does make achieving anything in a musical sense, in a career sense, almost impossible. And that doesn't even just go for music. That goes for everything in general. But if you're not on the same page with those people that mean the most to you as to where you're going, what you're trying to achieve, and what you're doing on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, that breakdown is pretty bad. It's pretty hard to recover and keep momentum doing anything when they're pulling away or it's breaking down or something like that. So, just a huge part of that, balance is key, is talking about things like that. And that all begins with awareness, and that's really what we're going to start talking about, is being aware, and that's really hard. And when it comes to everything, just being aware. If we talk about one of our earlier examples, like health, it's easy to be aware for the most part because something's not working. We go to the doctor or we buy something to supplement our body, or we start doing other things like that. Your body's real fast to tell you when things are out of balance, and the awareness is there just because it has to be. Otherwise you die. Real simple. Really dramatic, but Yeah. The, so for that, it is really easy to, not easy, but it's really, you're going to find a way to be in balance. But in other things, it's not so easy to be aware when you're not in balance. And music is definitely one of those things where it's really difficult to have any mechanisms that tell you when you are in and when you are out of balance. We can sit back in our own lives and do a little bit of self reflection and try to tell ourselves when we're out of balance. We may attribute things to that, but it's usually well after the fact when you're doing a self assessment and saying, I'm not where I want to be, something is not working, or I don't have the fans or the amount of people supporting me that I would really like, or I'm not playing the size of shows I'd like to be playing. That really starts to tell you that something's not in balance, but we don't have many mechanisms in life for that. So it really comes about back to being aware, self-awareness. And in the music world, one of the best things we can use to counteract this, to really start building something for our own self-awareness, is setting goals and setting priorities. And as we talk about balance is key. This is the tool, this is the weapon that we're going to pick up and use to fix this, to address this. And especially as we're in our place as people in smaller communities, or people that aren't out there yet, that don't have a support system to begin getting where we want to be, this is something that we will have and always have to achieve what we want to achieve. So what do we mean by setting goals? Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. And I'll just take a quick example here. And let's talk about in the music world. Let's just take, for example, somebody who wants to get out and start playing shows. They're at home, they're doing their own thing, they're growing as a musician, an artist, as a songwriter, but they're not out playing shows yet. And so they're not happy. They know they want something, but they're not sure what it is. And then they assess and they look into themselves and they say, hey, I want to be out playing shows like, my friends I've seen, or my, people on Instagram or whatever social network you may be watching or part of. So the real easy thing to do is just to be like, okay, I need to go out and do this and hope it happens and do that kind of thing. But in all honesty, if you want to do that, if you want to achieve that, you need to set a goal. And the best way to do that is real simple and really, I know, cheesy, and you've done it before and we've all seen it before, but just sit down and write it down. Find a way to put it on a piece of paper or a document or something and just do it. Just show it on a piece of paper. The best way to flesh out where you want to be that year or what you want to achieve is to have it on something where you can see it. And from there, it's super easy to start breaking down what you want to do with that and how you want to achieve it. So for this example that we're using, we're going to talk about the person that wants to get out there and start playing shows. Well, the first thing you do is you sat there, you written it down, you have it on a piece of paper, and it says, I want to start playing shows. So what kind of shows? And for this example, we'll just say somebody out there that just wants to start playing, brewery shows, those kind of things, like smaller venue shows and just really relaxed. Just me personally, like my guitar, my piano, my keyboard, that kind of thing, real intimate. And so great, yeah. So we've assessed, we've gotten paper, we're starting to break it down, we've got a direction. That's fantastic. And so what's the next step? Where do we go from there? So the next step from there is going to be taking that goal and taking that idea that you've come up with of here's where I want to be and here's the kind of show I want to play. The really important next step is to set a time limit. And it doesn't just go for this hypothetical example. It really goes for everything. If you aren't taking the time to actually set a limit, a time, a deadline, then I'm going to tell you about 9 times out of 10, it ain't going to happen. You can hope, you can dream, you can want something, but if you don't have a deadline and you have goals set, then what's the point? What's the incentive? Even if it's just arbitrary, putting it on paper, putting it on a document. I like to myself, as cheesy as this is, and I'm going to really expose myself here, I like to make little drawing diagrams, and I'll take clip art and I will make a little, I guess what they call it now is a wish board or a dream board or stuff like that. And we're getting into, the secret territory here, and I don't want to get there at all. But just knowing yourself and what will hold you accountable and give you something to strive for, and a finishing line. Even you can't have achievements without crossing lines, and setting those dates, setting those goals is really, really important. So back to our example that we're using here, this person here wants to be out there playing shows. So they've decided they want to play in like breweries, smaller cafe shows, and they got to set a date. So we'll say, hypothetically, just because it's convenient for the time right now, it happens to be spring. So let's say they want to be out there and playing a show by the summer. So we'll just get their piece of paper out. Here's where I want to be. I want to be doing this kind of show. I want to play my first show by the end of July. So we'll say it's spring, beginning of spring. We'll give them realistically 3 months to get things in order. Perfect. What's the next step? Now, from here, it's really easy with a date and a goal to just be overwhelmed by what I should be doing, where to invest my time, and that kind of thing, and start doing that. But now that we've set that bar, we set that line, the next step, and almost everything, even non-examples here, but everything is just to do a little bit of research, dig a little deeper. So in this case, we'd be talking about, you want to go out and you want to play a show, and the kind of show. So you go to social media, grab Instagram, grab some examples that of people that are playing those kind of shows, doing that kind of thing, and look into where they're playing. Pick a venue that might be friendly to, that you frequent, that you've been to, that your friends are okay with going to, and look at the shows they're playing. How long are they playing? What's the time limit I should be looking at here? How many songs am I going to have to know and have ready? And there, on that same list, that same document, whatever you're using, just start writing those things down. It looks like they're playing, 9 to 11. And great, 2-hour shows. That's fantastic. I know I have a goal and I have something measurable to start dividing. And division is really the key when it comes to using this particular thing to offset balance, to know where to focus your efforts. Division is the key. The more that you can divide something and have a line to achieve, to cross those little things, to really start growing and building that momentum, having that little thing, it really starts to add up and get you going and feel like the progress is happening, and really gets you set and feeling like this is something that I can achieve and get to. So we're just talking about a single show. It seems like so simple and so achievable, and everybody does it, but without taking those little steps, without addressing it, without putting it on paper or on a document, it may never happen, and it probably wouldn't. At least not in the way that you want it to, or a way you feel comfortable with. So we've got to that point. We've got to, in our example, somewhere where we're using the schedule to fix this, and you start fixing those little things that maybe you don't have the balance of. Oh crap, I don't have an entire list of songs I need to achieve this. And so it's 2 hours, I'm going to need, 15, 20 songs just to be safe, something like that, some kind of repertoire. Then that's perfect. You know exactly where your imbalance is and what to start working on. You start breaking down of I have 3 months, how many songs in a week do I need to learn? You put that down, and you start just crossing those little lines until you have these songs and the whole set list that you want together to get to that point. And it's just a real quick example of how we're able to achieve that and to use that as a weapon. But I like to call that an actionable schedule. And that's what I will, anytime I say that, that's what I'm talking about, using an actionable schedule to achieve whatever goal you've set out to do. And that's a great way that we can, when we're talking about balance and what we can do and what we can't do, what our strengths are, what our weaknesses are. Excuse me. Using an actionable schedule is the best way to deal with that. Another thing we want to talk about here is just as we're getting into balance and what it is, why it works, what it applies to us is how it works in the music world. So balance in the music world is a little different when it comes to a lot of things in life. And I'm sure you as a musician, like, as a group or as a person, as an artist, have come across that as it's just not the same with everything else. So our example earlier was health. And, if you go to a doctor and something's not working, something's out of balance, then they'll give you, a nutritionist to show you how to fix it, or they'll give you supplements to offset what the problems might be, or they'll give you medicine to make it better because something stopped working or wasn't enough of something. There's always a way to fix that balance in those ways. When it comes to music, and it's so much different in careers and a daily routine as a musician or an artist. And I've after doing a little bit of thinking and putting it on paper, I've come up with 3 things that we have in our toolbox as musicians and artists that we can use to fix that, to right an imbalance. The first one is pretty obvious, is time. So when it comes to imbalance, if we have something where we don't feel like we're strong enough in an area, or it's really starting to show and we have a weakness where we're going out and we're playing songs and they're not connecting with somebody, for example, they're not connecting with the audience that you have, and people they don't really like this song or this song. They're really great with this song and they're all about it and they're downloading it and they really got the support for it and they want to buy a version of it, but the other songs are really falling flat. Then, it's really easy to assess that and say, hey, okay, so maybe my songwriting isn't as strong as it should be. I'm a little bit out of balance here. The thing that's really going to fix that is time, putting in the actual work of figuring out, hey, what part of these songs is resonating, what part of the songs and the other ones are really just falling flat. Am I not telling a good enough story? Am I not conveying the emotion that I'm trying to? Is there just not a great part of the melody that isn't really clicking with people in this part, and in this song there is? The only thing that's going to fix that is time. And that's why it's one of our 3 main tools that we can use for that. The second is, of course, money. And what do I mean when I say money is one of the 3 tools? Money, when it comes down to it, is one of those things where we run to our pockets and to the bank when we aren't quite achieving the sounds that we think we want. So maybe it's the recordings that you're putting out, or sharing with people. They aren't quite to the quality that you want, aren't quite to the quality of the genre that you're in, or the part of the group that you're trying to be part of. We got to get that piece of gear. We got to get that new instrument. We got to do this. We always see money as a way to correct an imbalance, and it rarely is the case, but sometimes, gear is important. Gear is part of the game. So, money might be the way to correct an imbalance. The third and final way out of these is the one that we just spent time going over, goals, and using goals and using that actionable schedule as a way to offset an imbalance. So won't go into that again. Let's see. Well, next part would be what I call the will of balance. And it's not a trademark thing. It's not really original. It's nothing that great. But when you sit down and try to plot out what are the areas in a music career, in a journey of being a musician or artist that can be out of balance. And I came up with 6. There are probably more. There could be less. And all of these are not going to apply to everybody. But we're just going to go over the 6 that you might start to plot out in your head, or even on paper or document, where you stand in these, where you might be in balance, where you might be out of balance. So let's just get it going. The first part of that wheel is writing. And like I said, as our early example, when we're talking about investing time, when it comes to writing, it's pretty hard, and it takes a while to understand when this is out of balance, because you have to be putting out songs, you have to have a goal set of, who am I trying to reach, and be able to get that feedback when it's working and when it's not working. So when it's out of whack, it's pretty obvious. It just takes time, and it takes that feedback of not getting the results that you were looking for, to understand when it's out of balance. And like I said, one of the best ways to remedy that is just time and putting in the work. That's the first one. Number two is performance or performing. That one is just really knowing, again, where you want to be in that circle. It's only going to be out of whack or out of balance if you have a goal set or something in mind where you want to be by a certain time. I want to be playing, this size show, making this kind of money. If we're talking about a career by here, then what's out of balance? What's not working with this? Am I not connecting enough? If I'm not getting enough of a rapport as a group, as a band, as an artist? Do I not have enough things recorded to be shared, to get the name out there, to get the size show that I want? Or are my shows not good enough? Am I not entertaining enough? All the things we have to consider is what might be out of balance in that scenario. So that's the second one. The third one, which the next two may not to apply to you personally, but at least one of them should be if you're in this area, this struggle with us, and that is practicing an instrument. And that's really straightforward as to if that's out of balance. If you're playing shows or performing, or even in a scenario where you're recording something in a studio or at home, and it's taking longer to get the results you want, to get the right notes, to get the right chords, to get the timing right. That comes down to, practicing your instrument. It's pretty straightforward. If you're not putting in the time, there's a whole different part of that where you feel like you're boxed in, and we all get to this point where we feel like we're boxed in, and this also applies to the next one. Where you're doing the same thing over and over, especially guitars. That's the one thing I happen to know. We all have this thing where when we're learning scales and applying that to our music and writing, we get stuck to where we only play one scale or one type of scale over and over and over. It's all we know. We don't know how to expand. We don't know how to go farther. We don't have the time to invest in that. That's something that can easily be out of balance really quickly. Or you're even in the worst case scenario, if you go to the extreme of that, where you're practicing all the scales, all the scales, but they're just not translating into melodic themes that are connecting with people, or you're not writing songs because you're just doing, so much work getting better at this, and there's no balance. So you would say in that case that your practicing is out of balance with your writing, in that kind of idea, and your hypothetical wheel. If you're not watching on YouTube, you can't see me making this weird gesture, but that would be out of balance. So the next one, like I said, may not apply. It may apply, but that's just vocals and practicing that and training your throat and your larynx to do the right thing that you want it to do. And if you aren't practicing, it's just you can always sing. Some people are born with that natural ability just to be able to belt it out and know exactly which note should be next, but very few, if you're really being honest with yourself, if the people who are out there achieving what you want to achieve, they've put time into it. They've put effort. They've put hours in understanding what scales they're singing with, and just putting the time in. So, and it's really obvious when it's out of balance, when you're performing or in the studio or at home trying to record something. It's taking like 17, 18, 20 takes to achieve something that might be a little bit out of balance. You might need to just invest a bit of your time to make that work, And that was number 4. Number 5, kind of into the same thing, there is recording. And if you're, being honest with yourself and you want to achieve any sort of thing that isn't just, I want to play music for my loved ones, my family and friends, which is totally fine and fantastic. But anything beyond that, recording's going to be a part of this process, be it at home, be it in a live situation, be it in a studio. You're going to have to find a way to get your music from what you're doing to other people to be able to connect with you and be a part of that. And if you're out of balance in recording, it's pretty obvious, but only because you've set a line in your head of, I want to be at this level, and my stuff sounds like this. It's not that good. It's not that great. And when that's out of balance, it's pretty obvious. But that's okay. It's pretty easy to fix. And it's one of those things that come down to, like, again, when we're talking about the three examples of balance in the music world, you can either put time into it, where you learn all the skills of being a recording engineer and learning how to mix and edit whatever, tool you use, a DAW or a digital audio workstation to record that music. You're going to have to put time, and I mean time, to get good in what level you want. And that's where the other versions of it is. You can just use money, which is great if you have that resource. And some people that start to grow and get to that level, they have it. They can find a studio that they can work with, that they trust, and they know that they can focus on the other parts of their wheel of balance, on the writing and the performing, and just come in the studio, or the engineers are going to be able to just take that and be like, okay, perfect. And then, maybe you'd add something to it, but it all needs to be in balance in some way or the other. If you want to achieve anything in a music career or a music live, recording's just part of that. And you got to understand and be aware of where that's at. Number 6, the last one is kind of self-explanatory, but it's not. You'd think it'd be really straightforward, but it's listening and expanding. And what do we mean by listening and expanding? We all love to listen to music. We wouldn't be doing this if we didn't. But how often are you conscious of what you're listening to and what you're saying? And that's the real thing here, is that the real crux. You have to be conscious at least some of the times as to what you're listening to and why you're listening to it. What is lighting that fire to you? What's giving you the inspiration? Who's your muse? If you were really honest with yourself and taking the time to listen to something, you should be able to pick out the parts of the song that really resonate with you as a listener and a fan of somebody or something, and why that works. And the opposite is true too. I mean, you should be able to, when you hear a piece of music that you're like, no, it's not for me. No, that's not it. Instead of just walking away and being in your comfort zone, sometimes it's best to try to achieve that balance where why? I'm going to sit here, I'm going to listen to this. And what is it about this that doesn't resonate with me, or I feel isn't really legit, or whatever reason you may not like that song, but understanding why you don't enjoy this or why you don't think it's legitimate can help you in your other part, like bringing balance to the other parts of, like, hey, when it comes to my writing, I don't want to do this. I don't think it resonates. I don't think it's getting the point across. Here's why. And it helps you build yourself up as an artist, as a musician, as a writer, and gives you that balance. So just to finish it up and really get this one done, balance is the key as a fundamental. It really is. If you want to move forward with everything, it's really important that you have balance in everything that you can. Doesn't mean that we're all going to be there and we're all out of imbalance in some way. And that's okay. That's being human. But moving forward, we should all strive to achieve more balance in our life so that we can put more effort into the things that we want to do, the things that we need to grow as a musician, as an artist, as a career in this field. That's really going to be the biggest hurdle that you would have to take on. If you didn't address this, nothing else that we ever talk about would ever matter, because you're just putting out fires and you're not moving forward. So really want to thank everybody for taking the time to listen to this or to watch this. Thanks again to everybody involved. I want to thank Tanner Laws, who's coming up in our next episode, and he will be our first interview. He is a great example of somebody who's out there doing the work, putting in the effort. And if you have time, take a listen to that or watch that when it comes up. And thanks again to everybody. So look forward to hearing your comments and what you think we should be focusing on, or what something that you might get some use out of. Please, by all means, let us know. Contact us through our email, leave comments, do whatever you can. We'll read those and we'll try to take that in consideration. So thanks again, and we'll talk again soon. Bye. Oh, hey there. Didn't see ya. Thank you for joining me on In the Round. In the Round. I don't know where that music came from. But anyways, this is our end of the video segment where we just take a second to thank you again for listening and watching. And also to thank those special people that make this possible, our Patreon supporters. As you can see, they are listed here. Yeah, Okay. They get the joke. We can stop now. Clearly, we don't have any supporters yet. We're just launching. But if you'd like to join our community and be one of the first few to jump in, we'd really appreciate it. And you could start to see an acorn blossom into a tree. So we'd really appreciate that help. If you'd like to subscribe to the YouTube channel so you get more of this content, it should be down there somewhere. Or you can give us a like if you enjoyed the video. So thanks again, and see you again soon.